Good evening again, folks. We're back with our next guest, my good friend and a very talented writer, Patrick Thomas, who is going to be reading us for us as well. I happen to know the story he's reading, and then on some of the other stuff he's got in mind. It is enormous fun. I think you guys are going to love it. And with that, I'll give you the floor.
What about the rest of the
room? yeah, we'll see. You can rent the rest of the room.
Okay, very good. All right, the story I'm going to read today is from my Murphy's Law universe. It is in the book Through the Drinking Glass, which is book 3 of the Murphy's Law series. And the title is Pink Elephants, and we'll pick up there. It started out like an old joke. A man and a mouse walk into a bar. The guy has the mouse on a piece of string, like it's a leash, and the mouse is a Great Dane that shrunk in the dryer. The mouse, of course, doesn't appreciate being led around by the neck and is running back and forth, trying to get loose. The man, already 3 sheets to the wind, is trying to keep the mouse walking in a straight line, a task he can't seem to manage himself. The guy stumbles across the room, immensely proud of himself for some reason. He managed to find the bar, more by luck and touch than by sight. The stench of his breath made me glad no one in Bullfinch's pub was smoking at the moment. The guy had enough alcohol in his breath to become a human flamethrower. "Bartender, come here," the man said, slurring his words. "Morning," I said. "Is it?" he asked, looking at his wrist. He was unable to figure out the time, so he shook his hand, held his wrist up to his ear, and listened for ticking. Hearing nothing, he put his arm down and sighed disgustedly. If he had only asked, I could have solved this problem. His watch was on the other hand. "You know something? I refuse to drink with strangers." "Really?" I said, half smiling. "So you have to tell me your name," the drunk said, smiling as if he had made the funniest joke ever. "Name's Murphy," I said, extending my hand to be shaken, not stirred. The drunk managed to grab my hand on only the second try. "Nice to know you, Murphy. My name's Marty." "Pleasure to meet you, Marty." "Really?" "Actually, that remains to be seen. What can I do for you today, Marty?" Marty shifted his weight and half fell off his bar stool. Righting himself, he murmured, "Yes." "Get you a drink?" I suggested. Marty was too drunk to notice the sarcasm. "Bingo! How'd you know?" he asked, appearing to be genuinely amazed as a 5-year-old watching his grandfather pull quarters out from behind his ears. "I'm a professional." "I bet you $1 I can guess what you're drinking," I said. Marty fumbled in his wallet, pulled out $1, and slapped it down on the bar top. The movement unseated him, but he landed on his feet. "Deal," he said, retaking his seat on the bar stool. "Bourbon, right?" "Amazing! How'd you do that? You psychic or something?" "Nope, I'm not psychic. Just have a good nose," I said, pointing to my right nostril, then picking up the bill and putting it in my pocket. "Straight up?" "Yes. You sure you can't read minds?" Marty asked, looking down at the frantically running mouse. He had gotten his leash tangled up in and around the legs of the bar stool. Marty bent down and picked up the little rodent, petting him gently. The mouse either relaxed or was filled with such fear that he didn't dare move. "What's the deal with the mouse?" "He's my bodyguard," said Marty. He added in a confidential whisper, "I'm being followed." "By whom?" I asked. "Pink elephants," replied Marty. "Of course. I should have known." "I want to buy my bodyguard a drink. Milk or whatever mice drink. I also want to buy my other friend a drink." I looked around. There was no one near us in the pub. "Friend?" "The talking dog," said Marty. "Does he tell you what's on top of a house?" I said, waiting for the old punchline, when a familiar canine head popped up on the stool next to Marty's. "Not unless you ask," said the furry trickster god, putting his front paws on the bar. "Hello, Murphy. Bowl of whiskey, please." "That's no dog, that's my strife," I said. It went right over Marty's head. We have a unique clientele here at Bullfinch's pub, and the fur ball was a regular. "Hello, Coyote. What brings you by? I asked, putting a bowl of whiskey in front of the divine canine and a saucer full of milk in front of the mouse. Coyote lapped up his drink, but the mouse ignored his. My new friend Marty, who's been so kind as to offer to pick up the drinks, said Coyote. That's right. What's the damage on the drinks? Asked Marty. For you on the road, nada. First timers get their first drink on the house. Bullfinch's tradition. Furball's a good friend of the boss, so he gets a discount. I told Marty the amount and he paid up, plus a nice tip. I liked him already. So explain a bit about the mouse being your bodyguard against pink elephants, I said. If Coyote was involved, this was going to be good. Sure. I'm here in New York from Cleveland for an accountants convention. Yesterday, I went out drinking with some buddies from college that I hooked up with. I decided to head back to the hotel to catch some Z's. It was early, but we'd been drinking since noon. I got lost and ended up at the Lincoln Tunnel. There was a crowd around and I was a little drunk. And the Empire State Building is a little building. I tried to cross the street, but tripped over something and fell on my face. When I got up, I was facing a herd of pink elephants. For some reason, there was no traffic. So I ran down the middle of the street. The damn elephants followed me for 2 blocks. I couldn't get back on the sidewalks because of the crowds. When I turned the corner, they followed me all the way up to 32nd Street. I ducked into Penn Station and they stopped following me. I don't think they could fit on the escalator. Poor pachyderms. Not being able to get into Penn Station must make it hard for them to commute to work, I said, trying not to laugh. I guess. Anyway, I took the subway and got off a few stops away, but I knew they were still following me. I don't dare go back to my hotel, said Marty. That's the first place they look, I said. That's what I was thinking too. So I've been wandering around Manhattan, scared spitless that the elephants would find me. Luckily, I found an open liquor store and bought a bottle of bourbon to keep me company. I found a comfy park bench with a nice newspaper and spent the night there. This morning I ran out of bourbon, but I ran into my friend the talking dog. He helped me out. Did he? I asked skeptically. It's my nature, you know, said Coyote, looking up and feigning innocence. If a canine could look shifty, it was Coyote. What'd he do for you? I asked. I told him my problems with the elephants, and he was wonderful. The mouse was his idea, said Marty. I bet it was. How much did he charge you for it? I asked. Only $200, Marty said. I hated to part with it, but Marty's plight moved me. I even sold it at a discount. I practically gave it away, said Coyote. It only took him 5 minutes to go home and get it, said Marty. In a whisper, Coyote confided in me. Actually, that's how long it took me to lift one from a pet shop around the corner. What? You didn't hunt one down yourself? I whispered back. Too much effort. And before you go squealing to Patty, I left the butt for the rodent, Coyote said. The boss frowns on ripping off innocent bystanders. Guilty ones are fair game. And how does this mouse act as your bodyguard? Simple. I knew the elephants weren't afraid of me, so I figured all was lost. That's when the doggy reminded me that elephants were afraid of mice. So if the elephants come after me again, I'll just send Squeaker out after them. Isn't that right, little buddy? Marty asked the mouse, picking it up again. Squeaker tried to run away, but couldn't break Marty's grip. Brilliant, I said. Thank you, said Coyote, overly pleased with himself. Marty seemed very pleased by the turn of events. With enough booze in the blood, I guess anything can make sense. Excuse me, where's the restroom? I gotta see a man about a dog. No offense, added Marty, looking at Coyote. None taken, replied Coyote. I pointed Marty towards the bathroom, and he stumbled away. I gotta admit, Coyote, you've outdone yourself this time, I said. Yes, I have, said Coyote. I love being me. There's one thing I've learned about Coyote in the time I've known him. He can be a nasty SOB, literally, but not without a good reason. So what did this guy do? I asked. Coyote stopped lapping up whiskey with his tongue, lifted up his head, and smiled. Swindled a widow out of her savings, about 15 grand. Not much, but it was all she had except the Social Security check every month, said Coyote. Let me guess. She's part Indian, I said. Technically, I'm supposed to say Native American, but it always sets Coyote off in a speech about how the only truly Native Americans have 4 legs, so I just skipped it. 1/16th Cherokee, said Coyote. Only 1/16th, and she prayed to you? I said. Coyote is one of the few deities who still answers prayers personally, provided he likes what's been asked. His favorite kinds are the ones that let him even a score. Good sense translates race, Murph. Besides, I don't get all that much notice in the prayer department these days. I gotta pay attention. Beggars can't be overly choosy. True enough. So you're getting her money back? Yep. A little at a time. So far, I've gotten 2,000 for the mouse alone. But he said he paid you 200, I said. He did. Several times over. First, I convinced him he was so drunk, he was seeing double, so he paid me $400. Then I kept reminding him that he forgot to pay me, and he paid again. It's worked 5 times so far, said Coyote. Impressive. Thank you. So Marty has no idea the elephants he saw were with the circus, I said. Whenever the circus comes to New York, for free publicity, they stage a parade with all the animals heading through the Lincoln Tunnel and up towards Madison Square Garden, where the circus performs. Madison Square Garden also happens to be right on top of Penn Station. This year, the elephants had been colored pink via harnesses with special lights for a mystical creatures theme. The horses wore unicorn horns, the gorillas were supposed to be Bigfoot, and so on. Nope. You haven't heard the best of it, said Coyote. What? When Marty walked in here, I stopped at a payphone and called Roy and Rumbles. Roy G. Bibb and Rumbles were clowns in the circus and regulars here at Bullfinch's, at least when they were in town. They are on their way with a special package. It took a second to sink in. No way. I found one part of that story hard to believe, I said. Which part? Asked Coyote. You using a payphone. How'd you find it and where do you keep the change? I borrowed Marty's calling card, said Coyote. I called Rith's 900 line and told her what I was doing. Rith is a succubus who used to work here as a waitress. After she ran away from hell to marry an angel, she saved up her tips and opened her own sex phone line business. Her husband, Matthew, still works here as a dishwasher. I left the phone off the hook. Marty should be looking at a several $1,000 bill. I've been following him for days without him knowing it. Found out all sorts of stuff, some of which should interest his wife, whom he's already cheated on twice since he's been in New York. I took video, which I'm sending her, along with the number of a shark-like divorce attorney. You are really going after this guy, I said. I checked him out. He has gotten rich by pulling scams on people who can't afford to lose the money, said Coyote. In his mind, it's okay to swindle some money from the rich, as long as they have more, or are downright nasty. Not just widows, but parents investing monies for their kids' college education, couples trying to save for houses. This guy is bad news. He sets up a dummy corporation for them to buy stock in, which soon goes bankrupt, when in fact he really invested the money in his personal account in the Caymans. By the time I'm finished with him, he's going to be penniless. Seems reasonable, I guess. Outside, I saw a circus truck pull up into our parking garage. I walked over to the door to the garage, along with several other patrons who had been listening in on our conversation. Rumbles helped Roy down and then into his wheelchair. Roy had become a paraplegic after a high-wire accident at the circus. Roy rolled in while Rumbles got something large and pink out of the back of the truck. I doubted very much if either of them had actually asked permission to bring the cargo. We'll be ready in a minute, said Roy, his clown face aglow with mischief. Murphy, hide the mouse, said Coyote. I ran behind the bar and slipped the little fella into an empty beer pitcher. Roy wheeled himself over to the bar as Marty was coming out. "Hello," said Marty. "Hi," said Roy. Marty leaned over the bar and waved Coyote and me over as if he was going to tell us a secret. "That short redhead over there is kind of cute, but she wears way too much makeup," whispered Marty. Roy had his long red hair tied up in a top knot and his clown makeup on. "I tell her myself, but I don't want to hurt her feelings." "I understand," I said, holding my breath so I didn't chuckle. "Hey, Marty, when are you going to pay me for Squeaker there?" asked Coyote. "I thought I paid you," said Marty, downing the rest of his bourbon. "No, you said you would when you came back from the bathroom." "Didn't he, Murph?" said Coyote. "You did," I confirmed. "I did? Okay," said Marty, reaching into his wallet and flashing a wad of cash, at least a few thousand. Normally, I would have warned him about flashing that much money, but I didn't. There was no way Coyote was going to let him get mugged while he still had $1 Coyote hadn't managed to get his paws on. "Here you go, doggy." Marty slid $200 bills across the bar to Coyote. "Here you go," slurred Marty again. "Marty, I think you're seeing double again. There's only $100 there," said Coyote. "Are you sure?" he asked. Turning to me, he said, "How much do you see there?" "One $10 bill." "There's only 1 0 there," I said. Coyote raised an eyebrow and smiled. "Really?" he asked. I nodded. "I really am drunk." By convincing him he was seeing hundreds as tens, and that there were half as many there, we managed to get Marty to count out $4,000. With a quick paw movement, Coyote secreted away the money, although I couldn't tell exactly where. "Murphy, you show a lot of promise," whispered Coyote. "Thanks," I whispered back. Marty looked around and noticed his bodyguard was missing. "Hey, what happened to Squeaker?" he said. "Didn't you take him in the bathroom with you?" asked Coyote. "I don't think so." "Squeaker!" yelled Marty, running back into the men's room. There was a sound of frantic searching before he came out again. "Oh no, I must have flushed him down that weird toilet." "Poor guy," I said. "What a way to go." Marty started crying. "I killed him. I didn't mean to, but I killed him. I'm a murderer." "It's okay," I said. "He always said he wanted to be buried at sea. At least he got his wish. Part of him will always be with us, as long as we remember him." "You're right," said Marty, his tears stopping as suddenly as they had started. He picked up his glass. "A toast to Squeaker." "To Squeaker," we said. Marty drained the rest of his glass. "Doggy, can you get me another bodyguard?" Marty asked. "Please." "Sorry. Squeaker was one of a kind," said Coyote. Marty sniffed sadly. "Yeah, he was, wasn't he? I had better get back to the hotel." "You'll be okay?" I asked. "Sure. I'm sure the pink elephants have forgotten all about me. Maybe I was just too drunk to imagine the whole thing," said Marty. "That's the spirit," said Coyote. He wasn't about to let Marty go far. "Bye, everyone," said Marty. "Thanks for everything." We wished him well. As he walked out the front door of the bar, everyone in the place rushed over to the window. Roy even had video camera out and taping. Marty turned towards the parking garage. We all ran to the door that led into the garage for a better view. As Marty crossed in front of the entrance, a trumpeting noise burst in the afternoon air. Marty turned slowly until he was facing a several thousand-pound pachyderm lit up with rose-colored lights. "No! The big elephants have found me! Help me, Squeaker!" Marty yelled, looking up to the heavens in hope that his tiny bodyguard would drop out of the sky and save him. When that didn't happen, he turned and ran down the street screaming. We watched him go until he ran out of sight. Poor Marty looked like he wouldn't stop until he got back to Cleveland. The end. So, do we have any questions from anybody? Should I go into Dear Cthulhu?
I just wanted to say we do have listeners. I can see them,
Oh, good
but
question. Yeah. Okay.
they've been quiet so far. I do want to say I love that story.
Well, thank you.
Coyote's a favorite of mine. And just the con. Oh, what can I say?
I like him. I'm working on another collection in the series that'll be called Tails. I'm sorry, TAILS from Bullfinch's Pub. And it's partway done, but there will be a Coyote solo story in there, and there is already a Sun Wukong story done, and a few others. So it should be some fun.
Sun's
All right,
another fun character.
And I probably should have explained a little bit more. Murphy's Law takes place in New York City in Bullfinch's Pub, which is a bar owned by Leprechaun Patty Moran. He bought it with his pot of gold. So Rainbow's lead people in trouble to the bar. Let's see if we can just zoom in on the logo there. And Hercules is the bouncer. Dionysus kind of wine is one of the bartenders. And various people of myth, legend, and everyday New Yorkers come in and stuff happens. 9 books and 20 books in the extended universe summarized very quickly. So one of the other series I write is the Dear Cthulhu Advice Empire. It's a column that's been in several magazines over the years. It's also on Destiny for Voice of Science Fiction once a month, which is a radio show on WUSB in Stony Brook, Long Island, with Dr. Howard Margolin, which is also put on after the broadcast into a podcast. So the first book in the series is Have a Dark Day, which is how he ends most of his columns. And the first letter that was written and published back in Cthulhu Sex magazine was this one, and it is one of my favorites. And I'll read that one, and then we'll see how we're doing on time. Dear Cthulhu, my boyfriend Jim and I have been seeing each other for 4 months. Things have been going great. Jim tells me he loves me, and I know I care about him a lot. Our making out has always been hot and heavy. Jim's a great kisser, but lately Jim's been wanting to go beyond necking and petting. I'm just not sure I'm ready to give him my virginity. Jim says if I really love him, I'll make love to him. My mother always told me if a guy truly loved me, he'd wait until I'm ready and not pressure me. My friends all think he's really hot and I should do him. I'm the only one of my girlfriends still a virgin, although I have one gay guy friend who still is. What should I do? Confused virgin in Vermont. Dear confused, virginity is a sacred, beautiful thing, and any man who would pressure you to destroy such a rare treasure is a cad who would be better off. Your friends all think he's really hot. As for your so-called girlfriends, they sound like a bunch of twits. Remember, it is better to be a leader of men than a follower. The only one you should ever follow is, of course, Great Cthulhu. Speaking of which, some followers, or rather friends of mine, are throwing a ritual sacrifice. I mean party, shortly when the heavens align. How would you like to be the guest of honor? We would love to have you. Email me at virgins@dearcthulhu.com and bring a dish to pass. And he ends each broadcasting column with, have a dark day. So let's see, what time are we at? And I guess, Kevin, should I keep going and read some more? Or I see we have probably our next contestant.
Yeah, he's a little bit early. You still have time yet.
Okay. So let me find another. We might as well go.
And hey, it's Cthulhu. He may be the ultimate evil, but that doesn't mean he can't give good advice.
This is true. And the second book in the series is called Good Advice for Bad People, which pretty much sums it up.
Yep.
Where most of these people, if they had written Dear Abby or Ann Landers, would probably be reported and get a visit from the FBI or local authorities. Cthulhu does give them advice that would be practical to their needs.
I also wanted to say real quick, folks, if you're enjoying these as I do, there are links in the description to the first Dear Cthulhu book and Through the Drinking Glass on Amazon. I highly recommend them both.
Me too, but I'm biased. So.
Yeah, but I'm sort of biased. It's for friends, but I'm slightly less biased.
All right, so we'll go back to Dear Cthulhu.
Yes.
Cthulhu. I've been married to Mandy, the most wonderful woman in the world, for 9 years. Unfortunately, for the last 3, she's been in a coma. This has made life very difficult for me. I visit the hospital every day, which, after you figure in work, commuting, and sleep, just doesn't leave much time for anything else. The doctors say she probably won't come out of it, and I don't have the heart to pull her feeding tube. The truth of the matter is, I still have needs that aren't being met. Manly needs. My family and friends have told me I should start dating, but I take my marriage vows very seriously, and I can't cheat on my wife, even if she's in a coma. At the same time, 2 little round parts of me were blue and ready to turn purple, so I came up with a compromise. I had sex with my comatose wife. The first time was a little awkward, I admit, but it got easier. When she was up and about, we usually had sex 3 times a week, so I've made sure I limit it to that many times now, so I wouldn't be taking advantage of the situation. Except for the week of my birthday, when I always got a special present, although it was hard to do with all those tubes in her mouth. But hey, I figured we are married after all, so it's okay. Things went well for months, that is until last week. A routine blood test showed that Mandy was pregnant. We never used a condom before, and I hadn't thought to start now, which in hindsight was probably a mistake. It made sense I'd stop giving Mandy her birth control pills, all things considered. Now there is an investigation at the hospital to find out how this happened. Everyone from the doctors and nurses to the hospital administrators have been apologizing to me. I think they're afraid I'm going to sue them. They were thrilled when I agreed not to talk to the newspapers. The biggest downside is now they have video surveillance of my wife 24/7, so our midnight trysts are over. I'm worried they might charge somebody else falsely with the crime. What should I do? Confess to the crime or wait and see how things turn out? The last complicating factor is if they charge someone else, will I still get to keep the baby? If the issue comes up, should I insist on a paternity test or would that get me in more trouble? The truth is, Mandy and I always wanted children. I'm just not sure if I'm ready to be a single father. Do you think what I did was wrong? And can you come up with a way for me to be able to be with my wife again romantically without getting caught by the cameras? Comophiliac husband incontinent. Dear Comophiliac, you say you're not sure you're ready for the responsibilities of single fatherhood. Frankly, you should have thought about that before you procreated with your unconscious spouse. You had to know the possible consequences. And let us be honest, it's not like you can plead the typical human defense that it was in the heat of the moment. As you say, you and Mandy are married, so I do not feel what you did was wrong. However, if Mandy ever wakes up, she may feel differently, as might the local authorities. I recommend that you confess nothing. Say you want to raise your wife's child as your own, and custody should not be a problem. Play your cards right, and the hospital may give you an out-of-court settlement that will set you and your child up for life. As for the paternity test, I say do not do it, at least publicly. Let us be honest here. Mandy is not the same woman now as when you married her. How do you know for sure that you are the father? Someone else could just have easily had relations with your wife when you are not there, although Cthulhu suggests if she did, that you do not blame her. Have the test done at a private clinic. If you are the father, congratulations. If not, then you can use the results to get a larger settlement by threatening to go to the press. In the current healthcare market, that kind of publicity could ruin their business. So they would probably go along with whatever you ask for just to keep you quiet. As for copulating with your unconscious spouse with the security in place, I recommend waiting for a blackout and hoping that generators are only hooked up to the life-saving equipment. Dear Cthulhu, you are without a doubt the most evil, heinous creature in the entire world and a total waste of life. Why anyone would print your rantings is a mystery to me. Outraged in Ohio. Dear Outraged, thank you for your kind words. It's always nice to get fan mail. Let's see if we can go with something else. Dear Cthulhu, I have a job and a boss that I hate. The slime bag treated me like crap. So I took my revenge by peeing in his coffee pot every morning. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but it ended up backfiring on me. Turns out he loved my special blend and couldn't get enough of it. He told the entire office and they loved it too. I'm not really sure why, but I am diabetic, which is supposed to make the urine sweet. That or they were all just really used to horrible coffee. Without telling me, my idiot boss entered my brew in a contest that Spacebucks Coffee House was running to find the best new coffee. I won, and they offered me a ton of money to manage one of their biggest shops and make my special blend for the customers. I'm torn. I could use the money, and it would be a huge relief to get out of this office. What should I do? A real pisser in Pittsburgh. Dear pisser, take the job, but insist on your own private office to make the coffee. And remember to drink lots of fluids. Dear Cthulhu, my partner and I recently went pro at a women's beach volleyball. We made it to the finals, but the competition was fierce. I was worried they'd beat us. I knew whoever won that tournament would also get a bikini endorsement, and I wanted that money. So when the opportunity came to drug our opponent's drink right before the match, I took it. We won 2-1. The only problem is, now I feel guilty. Suggestions? Setter in Seattle. Dear Setter, I can understand why you would feel guilty. The other team was drunk and it still took you 3 games to beat them. Not only should you feel guilty, you should be ashamed. I will suggest that next time you consider using stronger drugs or train harder. Probably both. Dear Cthulhu, I'm a newlywed and I have a secret which is hammering a wedge between me and my husband, Fred. I was in a porno and I really don't want him to find out, especially since I sort of filmed it on the morning of our wedding. The way I figured it, a lot of girls have a last fling before taking the marital plunge. Instead of forking out money to a stripper, I just managed to get paid for mine. Plus, it was before the ceremony, so technically I didn't break any vows. There was one other thing. Since we rented the hall for the day, and the ceremony was in the afternoon, I sublet it to the production company. Between that and my salary for starring in the video, I paid off the wedding and the honeymoon. Although I think Fred thinks I got the money from my parents. Those cheapskates wouldn't give me a cent. So I really didn't have much of a choice. My worry is Fred will find out. But I was smart enough to wear a disguise. Sort of. The film was titled The Bride of Sexenstein. So I was able to wear my veil the entire time. For someone who didn't know me intimately, like my husband's friends, it would be enough. I did make the mistake of wearing the same dress for both the movie and the wedding, but I figured the odds of a guy noticing that while watching a porno is pretty low. I intended to be a one-time deal, but now I'm up for some award, a kind of porno Oscar. The producers have approached me to do the sequel, The Ex-Wife of Sexenstein. Again, normally I'd say no, but we're looking to buy a house, and they added a 0 to the end of what they paid me last time. It would practically pay off the entire mortgage. My main problem is because I'm married now, I technically be cheating on Fred, and that bothers me. Of course, so does living in this cramped one-bedroom apartment we're in now. Help me prioritize. Which is more important, my vows or paying off our house? Adult Star in Albany. Dear Star, your vows are paramount of course. A promise given should not be broken. I would kill if an acolyte broke their vows to me. Of course, there is a way to do both. Divorce him, make the film, and then remarry him. Just make sure at his second stag party they have strippers, not films. Your veil would probably not be enough to fool him. Dear Cthulhu, have you ever had plastic surgery? Nosy nose jobber in Silicon Valley. Dear nose jobber, no. But I had a plastic surgeon for lunch last week. Sadly, he looked much better than he tasted. Would seem somehow appropriate. So how are we doing, Kevin?
We're just coming up on 5. It turns out, folks, I apologize. There's been a scheduling snafu with having both Dacre Stoker and Alex scheduled for the 5:15 slot. I'm currently trying to straighten this out. They're both going to be on.
If there are any questions, I can answer them, and
Yes.
I'd be happy to let them start at 5. So are there any questions from anyone?
Let me see. Check the chat. No, we've had people in the. That's a sort of surprising thing. We've had between 3 and 5 people in the chat over the course of the stream, and everybody's super quiet.
Okay, no worries. Please feel free to ask
Let's see. Not that one. Not that
if you
one.
have any questions. Otherwise,
Pat won't bite. Don't worry. Or wait, will you bite?
all depends on the situation.
Good answer. Some people might want to be bitten. I shouldn't have presumed.
You just may turn into an author at the next full moon.
Now there's a scary possibility. Okay.
Okay.
I'm wondering if maybe in fact this has already been corrected and Dacre's going on at 6. Because that would also solve this all out. Wasn't quite. I mean, originally my logic was to put all the writers together. So you yourself, John, and Dacre, and then have Alex, since he's an artist and a writer, because he fits in there as well, and then move on to other Arthur. But it's like this will work as well. Well, I will say this: one of my regular listeners, Teresa Hall, Gulf City Pagan, apparently has been doing laundry, but she's loving story time.
Oh, good. Good.
So I think we've got you some new fans.
Hey guys,
Hey, Alex.
am I here or am I not here? Hey,
Well, that's the essential question we all have to ask ourselves.
Indeed.
I'm Schrodinger's cat today. I get it.
Well, I figured out a while ago what the deal with Schrodinger's cat actually is.
Oh yeah.
Because Schrodinger's cat is neither alive nor dead, right? That's the whole idea.
Oh,
Until you observe it, it's neither. It's in a quantum state of both. So there's only one possible answer. Schrodinger's cat is a vampire. Because what else is both alive and dead?
Or Jesus.
No, Jesus is not undead. Well, necessarily. I'm going definitely with.
I want to be provocative, so I'm going with Jesus.
Of course you do.
There is a, and I want to say Bajang, a breed of vampire in traditional myth. I want to say Bajang, who have 2 unusual abilities. One is to become a cat instead of a bat or a wolf, and the other is they make people throw up. And one of my characters, Jake, who appears in my Hex stories, is one of those. They're not particularly powerful, but you turn into a mist. You go somewhere and they start hurling. It does tend to, put a damper on things.
I have a question for you, Patrick, actually. So,
Okay.
Thomas Karwacki in the chat
Hey, Dom.
asks, will there be another Star Tenders book soon?
Soon, no. But yes, I have 2 to 3 more plotted out. That, and then I don't have anything beyond that. The next one will follow up at one point. Basically, the Goblin Empire is going to find where Earth is, and they're going to attack.
Oh, crap.
That will be part of the book, and oddly enough, it'll be up to Murphy to, save the day, despite being human. So, without giving too much away. So,
I'm looking forward to that.
Guest of the Goblin, because they've kind of tweaked that. And for people who haven't read Star Tenders, it takes place in the Murphy's Law universe 20 to 30 years from now. And the premise is they will go into space not in starships, but barships. And the Goblin Empire, goblins are not native to Earth or fairy. They're actually aliens. And what they do is they send them out in really not necessarily the best spaceships, and they send them to another planet where they're supposed to soften up the population for invasion. And Gob, named everyone, you named goblins and Goblin Empire after himself, has destroyed all the other gods in his pantheon. And in the Murphy's Law universe, mana equals power for gods. And so every time he conquers a planet, not only does he want the resources and people for labor, he makes them worship him. So he basically, it's a big pyramid scheme with him at the top. So they've had some run-ins with him and goblins, and it's all going to come to a head in the next book. And then book 4, I don't want to say anything, but there's been something that some people have not been thrilled with about the future, and this actually addresses that without giving more. And then book 5, the consequences of that lead directly to book 5, where Murphy will be in a new position. So, yes, I have it plotted out, but I have to finish the current Murphy's novel, and John and I are working on a book, the second Jack Gardner mystery. Have to polish that up, and I'm trying to think what else is in the way. And then I have a couple kids' books that are before I can start on that.
I actually have a question.
Sure.
Very important question. Whatever happened to the Dagonet supposed to be coming out?
That one is probably about 60,000 words. What happens with the collections is a lot of times they get built up when you get invited into anthologies, and I, like many of us, we use the same characters over and over again. And so this way you get to a collection sooner. And of late, none of the anthologies I have been invited into have been appropriate for a Dagonet story. So originally I had hoped to do 2 books, one with from Camelot to 1800s, and then one from like either the modern day or maybe throw in the Depression era, although that might go in the first one. And if I do that, it's going to take much longer. So I think I'm going to basically go from Camelot to the modern day. And I do have a modern day story, which will probably wrap out the collection. So I have to do that. And there's one set in the West that I'm not happy with the story as of yet. So when those 2 are finished, that'll come out. So the Dagonet story collection is much closer to coming out than the Star Tenders. So it is mostly done. 2 stories, and it'd be ready.
Good. Very good.
So
we can tell everybody who Dagonet is.
Oh, certainly. In the history of King Arthur, there are many different knights, and in several of the mythos involving that, King Arthur has a jester, and the jester's name is Dagonet. in some of them, he is a fool, an actual fool. In some, he gets knighted because a knight has to defend himself, and he's used for comic relief, which a jester might be, but he's not necessarily always portrayed as the most heroic. In my world, he actually encounters the Holy Grail before Percival, Galahad, all that, and he's healed and he's granted immortality. He will eventually die, but he's left with, he's like 4.5 feet tall. He's an acrobat. Every time, well, I don't want to give that away, actually. That gives away something from one of the stories, which you guys may have already read, but the readers may not have. So he's still around today. He has an invisible telescoping sword called Hayden, which was created by Merlin's sister, who is the one that got away and keeps getting away. Ganita and him have a 1,000-year-long relationship. They love each other desperately, but just can't seem to make it together for a long time. And 1,000 years is a long time. Most marriages won't last that long. And he exists in the modern day along with several other knights. As a matter of fact, in Camelot 13, which I edited with John French, which is available from Paddle Publishing, there is a modern day Dagonet story with most of the surviving knights of the Round Table, including the Green Knight, who played the beheading game one too many times. So if you guys want to check that out. But so he is funny, he is noble, and actually this probably wouldn't give too much away because it won't be in this collection, but it's in his mythos. One point before he knew what the Sword in the Stone was, he accidentally pulls it out, and Merlin is kind of freaked out by this and convinces him to put it back and drags him away. So he actually was worthy, but because being considered a freak because of his height and some other things would not have been accepted as the King of England for some odd reason. So.
Which is, I remember you telling me that once before, and it's just fascinating. As you know, because we talked about this before, Dagonet is probably my favorite of your characters, which is saying something because I love all of them.
Well, thank you. He's one of my favorites. It's just sometimes, also to answer Thomas's question, you have to be in the right mindset. I wrote both Star Tenders books within a 2-year period. I mean, there was one Star Tenders story that was written 5-6 years before, and maybe one other, and then all of a sudden just the rest of the books just came out. So you have to sometimes be in the right mindset. Like one of the characters I really enjoy from the Murphy's Law universe is Negro Hall's detective. Right now I got nothing in my mind for him. Like, I'm going to use him again, and he has guest starred in the Hex book and one of the Hex novels. So he's being used in the universe, but not quite where I need to be for him to have a solo book again. It'll happen. But just with in the Murphy's Law series, spin-off series wise, there is one book for Vince Argus, the Soul for Hire, who's a hitman who sold the soul to the devil, but he only kills people he deems worthy of killing. There's Negro, who's a forgotten Sumerian god who's chief of police in hell. He has 2 books and a comic and a graphic novel, 3-issue miniseries. There's Terabel, who's half ogre, half pixie, used to be a soldier in Fairy, now fights bad guys and big bads in New York City working for Nemesis and Company, has a huge crush on Murphy. She has 3 books, 2 take place in New York, and then 1 prequel that goes back to her time pre and post her time as a soldier, as a Daimor in Fairy. Hex has 2 books. He's a cursed magi, someone who can use any kind of magic, but whenever he does use magic, it causes him pain or some other sort of problem, and he can't use magic to interfere in a situation unless he's asked, although he can use it for self-defense if he hasn't butt in to something that he wasn't to butt into. So just with that, again, that brings the Murphy series to over 20 books. And there was even one that we crossed over, Nemesis and the Pink Reaper in the Depression era pulp with John French's Nightmares. So there's even Depression era. And so we're working towards a Pink Reaper book and some other stuff. So it's just a matter of there's only so much time in the day to write. And of late, I've been more in the writing zone for kids' books. I've done, as Patrick T. Phibbs, I've been doing a lot of middle readers. I have The Undead Kid Diaries. The first book, Over My Dead Body, is out. And the second book is It's My Party and I'll Die If I Want To. It is done. Just waiting for the art. And then we have the Babe Be Bear Mysteries, which is in a world where fairy tale characters are in the modern day. We have Babe Be Bear, not Baby. The news actually reported him that way. He didn't care for it. He catches the burglar Goldilocks when she breaks into his house. And so now people think he can solve mysteries. So what else? What else is a kid bear to do who's obsessed with Encyclopedia Brown and Raymond Chandler? He sets up a detective agency in his treehouse, wears a trench coat and a fedora, with his next door neighbor Rapunzel. She's not a princess, but her family is quite wealthy. And his best friend, Not So Bad Wolf. You may have heard of his dad, Big Bad Wolf. He's in jail right now for knocking down these 3 pigs' houses for the insurance money. And then in the first book, he catches Goldilocks, and then he's hired by the Little Mermaid to get her voice back because she had to be asked to prom by this guy. And then the prom gets canceled because this one senior, Humpty Dumpty, was hanging decorations and he fell and he's in a coma. So they didn't feel right having the prom. And in book 2, the title, and that first one is Bad Hair Day, which makes sense in the course of the book, both from Rapunzel and the Little Mermaid's point of view. Book 2, we have Ain't Seen Muffin Yet, where the bad guy is the Muffin Man, and they're hired by the witch from Hansel and Gretel. She's actually not the bad guy or bad gal. So that one, again, is also waiting on the art. And one that'll be out shortly is Joy Reaper Checks Out. It's about Joy Reaper, the skeletal daughter of the Grim Reaper himself, and what happens when her father takes her with him on Take Your Daughter to Work Day.
Oh, good Lord.
And the Ugaboos, they have 2 books out. One is a picture book called 5 Silly Monsters Jumping on the Zed, which is a lot of fun. And with the same characters, early reader, Sagi Goes to the Beach, in which Sagi, the sea monster, wants to go to the beach, and his adventures with his family, which include Broen Sissenstein, Cthulhu. Let's see, we have Belfry the vampire. We have Fluffy the weird dog. She's a dog that turned into a girl, as opposed to the other way around. And Hante, who's a ghost girl who wears a tutu around, as often happens. And there are a few other books that I'm working on as Patrick T. Phibbs as well. So, and I have a book coming out with Dan Horn, a picture book called Vicky Frankenstein and Her 3 Monster Dads, where Franco Stein and his 2 brothers, Drac Lou and Barkley. So we have a vampire werewolf and a Frankenstein monster. Adopt a little normal girl. And the first book kind of is them getting used to raising a human girl. And there are more books planned in the series as well. So I've been doing a lot of stuff for kids. Although I do have one other book as Patrick Thomas coming out this year, brand new series, Bikini Jones versus the Alien Brain Snatchers from Outer Space, which has a wonderful cover by Dan Horn. And it does kind of what Buffy does. But the premise for Buffy was, what if the girl the monsters were chasing, instead of falling down and screaming, turned around and killed the monsters? This one is why in comic books and art and posters and album covers from the 70s is a woman in a bikini always fighting monsters, aliens, and other things. Why is she not dressed more practically? And then this one we find out it's because she's cursed to always wear a bikini. And
Makes sense.
as is off to happen, she goes off and saves the world on a regular basis because, that's what happens.
As much
So.
as I loathe cutting anybody off, I think it's time to switch to our next guest. Patrick, it's
Very
been
good.
a pleasure. Thank you for doing the readings.
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you for having me.
Remember, we've got the free-for-all at 8:15, and then we've got the vampire panel at 5 tomorrow. You are welcome to both.
Oh my God, what happens at a free for all? I'm afraid to find out.
It's everybody can come in and chat. May
Wait,
open the
how
lines
many-
for people to
How
call.
to join the free for all?
What, don't you like free falls? Okay, folks who are listening, just keep in mind I'm going to shut off. I'm going to close off the stream, and start a new one. That way, you'll have nice separated videos. But Alex, don't do anything. You can just sit right there.
Okay.
It's all on my end and on YouTube.
Where's the other guy?
I think he's strained out. He's actually coming on at 6.
Oh, so you fixed it and you didn't know it?
Or he fixed. I think more accurately, he fixed it.
I guess. All right.
The way I look at it, I when things go right, I'm inclined to give other people credit. When things go wrong, I'll take the blame.
All right. Hey, so I keep the YouTube volume off, obviously, right? To avoid
Yes.
feedback. Okay. I got it.
Okay, so YouTubers will be back in a second. Remember, new video.
Okay.